Hi guys, Tziporah here. Today I'm talking about shame and guilt and BPD. Why am I talking about guilt and shame and BPD? It's because BPD people are more prone to shame. Now, what makes us more prone to shame? So often it is childhood neglect, emotional abuse, emotional neglect, traumatic childhood, and narcissistic mothers, and a variety of different reasons. Now, this can create our identity to be shameful, and it can cause us to feel the message that plays in us is that you are unworthy, you are unlovable, you are unwanted, and you are shameful. You won't be believed, listened to, and you're at fault. So when we're more prone to shame, it can lead to anger, depression, irritability. It can cause us to self-harm, self-sabotage, negative self-talk, negative other talk, and passive-aggressive tendencies. When we are more prone to shame, we can be more susceptible to abusive situations. Because we don't feel worthy or we don't feel like we'll be listened to and we automatically feel at fault for things, this causes us to be more of a target. And it causes a type of ashamed secrecy for not reaching out. And we feel that we are unable to get the help that we truly deserve. Now, this can cause us to be a high priority target for narcissistic abuse. And that is because narcissists do go around scanning for this core shame. And they can pick up on it easy because the narcissist's core is shameful as well. They just have the false self that allows them to not operate with the shame necessarily. So narcissists will look for this in their targets. And with core shame, it's shame and guilt. It's very easy to spot in body language, in eye contact, in verbal responses or self-talk. And this can lead us to be more noticeable to a narcissist. And because we feel that we're unable to reach out, it can cause us to be totally stuck in their narcissistic web of abuse. So we want to be careful about that. Shame can also cause us in what could be healthy relationships, it can cause us to project. So that means that we feel so much shame inside that we project blame and lack of responsibility onto other people because it's just too painful to have inside of us. Now, this will lead to unstable relationships, lack of connection, miscommunications, misunderstandings, and just general disconnect. We can often perceive criticism, judgment, interpersonal slights, and we can completely misread social situations and social interactions. This can cause us to have a very strong social anxiety, withdrawal, and isolation. And it can cause us to be generally more standoffish and suspicious and judgmental about the world around us and more affected by the world around us. So whether it be a grocery store clerk, a stranger, an acquaintance, a loved one, we can perceive fault, judgment, blame, criticism, interpersonal slights. We can perceive them a lot more when shame is our core, shame is one of our core emotions. And why is it hard to know that shame is actually the core emotion? It's difficult to know because shame can present as anger or fear. Now in this video, I said it's about guilt and shame, but I'm using shame primarily as the word because this is the emotion that we would operate from. Guilt is one of the feelings as well. Shame is more strong in the operation part. Now, shame can be masked by fear and anger and anxiety. And without knowing that shame is the core, it can be very hard to address and to tackle. So for instance, with my healing story, when I did my inner child healing and my shadow work, I was able to remove layers of emotions that were sabotaging my relationships. And I was able to very easily see and know anger, fear, anxiety, and these were released. And once these were released, the shame was still there. So after releasing all these emotions, I felt wonderful. It felt great. It was very noticeable in my interpersonal relationships, until I found that I was being more sensitive in the shame factor. So very sensitive in the perceived criticism, corrections, judgments, blames, and so on. So when it started becoming that I was still projecting this blame and negativity, I had to look further. So this was because when I uncovered and unmasked the shame with these layers of anger and fear and anxiety, the shame was a lot more raw and present. So it was very sensitive to the touch. And this involves, again, shadow work and inner child work. So what other things can we do to tackle and handle this shame? We can see that DBT skills are helpful for many things. DBT skills are very difficult for shame and guilt because shame and guilt isn't an impulsive behavior. Anger and other emotions are more impulsive. It's easier to put skills in place for these. So when it comes to shame, DBT skills are a lot more difficult to implement. And so what really needs to take place is shadow work, inner child healing, reparenting, and externalizing the shame. Once we can do these things, and as well as externalizing the shame, we become more empowered and we can start rebuilding ourselves back up into a confident and worthy state. And we'll believe that we are lovable and wanted and worthy, and that we are not at fault. We're not automatically at fault. We're not guilty. We're not shameful. We just had traumatic childhoods, or we just need to be able to heal, and it is possible. So if you'd like to work with us on this, be in touch and let us know if you have any comments or questions, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.